Hey guys, today we're in the book of Numbers chapter 10. Now chapter 10 ends the first section and begins the second section. The first section was being at Mount Sinai, and in the middle of chapter 10 we start the second section, which is traveling. We're going to see a couple chapters of them traveling. And so let's just go on and jump into it. At the beginning of chapter 10, God has them to build two silver trumpets. And we will see these trumpets as we continue to read. But basically, God is using this as a form of communication. If you hear one blow, you do this. You hear two, you do this, right? Remember, there's about 2 million people total, and God needs to be able to, or Moses needs to be able to communicate to all of those people. Yes, we're moving. Yes, we're staying. I need just the leaders. I need the people. I need you to do this. I need you to do that. Think of, like in the military, a bugle. Or in Civil War, in ancient wars, French wars, they would use a snare. So it was the cadence of the drum that would tell them to move left, to go right. Very much the same thing. And so God tells him to build these trumpets, and they are going to be the direction. And then in verse 11, we see they finally leave Sinai. And this is happening on the second year of the second month on the 20th day. And so they are leaving. It says the cloud lifted from the tabernacle of the testimony. And you'd have to imagine that there would have been some excitement in the air, right? This is what they've been. They've been camped out at Sinai for over a year now. And they are ready to head to the promised land, the land that was promised to Abraham. And so God lifts up and he starts to move. And you can imagine here at the beginning, there was great excitement of Israel moving on. And it says that it's settled down into the wilderness of Paran. I was just there a couple months ago. There is nothing there. It is kind of what we would call today the southern part of Jordan. If you look at Israel on a map, it's a long, skinny country, but it comes to a point. And at that point, you have Israel, Jordan, and Egypt. They all touch. And so it is the southeast corner of Israel. Where the beginning of the Negev desert, it is just a treacherous of nothing, of a wasteland of a place. And so when we get this idea that they're leaving Sinai, we think, oh, they're going instantly to the promised land. No, they actually go to a place that I would say was worse than the Sinai. It's just complete desert with nothing around. And so they go to the wilderness of Paran. They set out for the first time as a nation, as a group of people. Remember, they left Egypt in a hurry, but now there is a form, there's a structure. God has communicated them how they're going to leave, so they are finally a nation. And that's what it means, the standard of camp. The order that God has put them, what tribes are going, how's the tabernacle going, what tribes are in front of it, what tribes are behind it. God has set this order in the previous chapters that we've read, and now they are doing it. Verse 17, the tabernacle was taken down, and just as they have been commanded, every tribe of the Levites or every family of the Levites broke it down, carried what they want. Everything was done to the T, exactly how God has described it. Once again, because this is the first time, there is excitement. This will not be the pattern that Israel will keep for very long. And so they leave, they all set out, verse 28, verse 29, and then Moses said to Hobab. Hobab is Moses' brother-in-law, okay? It's his brother-in-law. And he basically tells him, hey, Hobab, I want you to come with us. Moses is petitioning Hobab to come with us. And Hobab says, no, I'm going to go back home. And Moses is like, no, we'll do good if you come with us. Please do not leave us, for we know where we should camp. He does not need Hobab for directions. God is the direction. He is the pillar of cloud, the pillar of fire. God will lead the way. He needs Hobab for directions when they stop. What do I mean by this? Remember, Moses, his first 40 years of his life was in Egypt living the plush life. The second 40 years of his life he spent in the desert, being a shepherd, right? Learning the Bedouin ways, the people who live in the desert, who move along with the herds, finding places to graze and places to water. Even though Moses has lived half of his life in this manner, he knows he's not the professional on this. He's saying, God will lead the way, but I need your mind. I need the Bedouin idea. I need somebody who can point out what plants we can eat, where can we draw water from, what kind of shelter is good, how can we live in such a place. Moses kind of knows where he's going, and it's not a great place. Eventually they'll be in the promised land, but he needs somebody to help them until they get to the promised land. And so that's why Moses is petitioning Hobab to stay with them. And so he says they set out from the Lord 3 days' journey, and the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord went before them 3 days' journey to seek out a resting place. So 3 days they get to the wilderness of Paran. Now, the day's journey is simply just it's a marker for time traveled. You think 2 million people, how much can they walk in a day? Bible scholars will say about 15 miles, right? So 45 miles they traveled. Now, I'm not going to get into this, but to those of you who have studied and watched this, this is a good marker that would say that Mount Sinai is not in Egypt, but it is in Saudi Arabia, because from Sinai to the wilderness of Paran, if you place it in Egypt, it is a lot further than 45 miles. But if you would place Sinai in Saudi Arabia to the wilderness of Paran, we are much closer to that 45-mile mark. I don't have time to get in there. You have questions, feel free to ask. But that's always something that's always being talked about. The cloud of the Lord was over them by day. God is leading the way. And whenever the ark set out, Moses said, and we see a little prayer here, right? When God sets out and the ark moves, God is moving. Moses says, "Arise, O Lord, and let your enemies be scattered, and let those who hate you flee before you." Moses is praying to God, saying, God, lead Israel. And then when it rested, when God stopped, Moses says a little prayer, and he says, "Return, O Lord, to the 10,000s and thousands of Israel." He's basically saying, okay, God, now will you stay with Israel? So every time the ark moved, Moses is praying, God, lead us. And every time he stops, he's inviting God to come back to Israel. And so it's just a little kind of neat little part that we get to see in the glimpse of Moses' life as a leader of Israel, that he is praying for guidance and he's praying for the blessing that God is with them, right? So there's always this constant prayer life of Moses and God. And so I hope that makes a little bit sense. We've moved from Mount Sinai. Now we are traveling, and we'll see you tomorrow in chapter 11. God bless.